Mr. Muktesh Chandra. Thank you, gentlemen. Pleasure indeed. Moving forward towards our next keynote speaker, I'd like to invite on stage Dr. S.K. Nanda, Additional Chief Secretary, Home Government of Gujarat. Let's put our hands together as Sir joins us on stage. Well, we're here to talk about technology and more, and we'd just like to put on record a presentation that Sir will be presenting.
Sure. I'll do it from here. If I need, you just keep it open. Just keep it open. If necessary, I'll be doing it. Okay. Welcome our great elite participants in this capital city. All of a sudden we have woken up to this great menace of what we call the cyber warfare, the cyber terrorism, the cyber surveillance, the cyber espionage. These are the things which have now stalked all of us and dominated all of us. And our good friends from NTRO, from the Ministry of Cyberspace, and all the great companies who are cohorts in the entire pool of our participants. In fact, it's a great tribute to the organizers to have started the first alarm bell at the national platform to take up this. I have no doubt a presentation which is a part now of the property of the organizer, which I wanted to show. But the problem and tragedy in a presentation is that it doesn't allow you to speak. The presentation runs through and you become a mute spectator. I thought that basically this is not a presentation, or this is not a forum or a platform to show our technical competence or get into the nitty-gritty of what we call the cyber-related and the crime-related things, but to bring into foray certain things which all of us should now wake up, and probably it needs hand-holding and more of networking, more of participation with the companies, and more of awareness among the companies that what we should do and how India is now gullible and what could be the kind of strategy that could come through. Friends, I would like to pose 3 questions before I get into the entire subject matter. When we go outside our home, do we leave our gates open or closed? We never leave our gates open. We close it. That gives the answer to the people who are using our PCs, the iPads, the programs, the computers, the passwords. Most of us forget. And the tragedy starts. A day was there when blood donation was taken as a matter of fact. Anyone needing blood would go to a blood donor and he will take it off. But nowadays, it is not so simple. Why I brought the analogy was that now, if at all you want to have a good blood, you should be sure about the secure blood, regular blood, known blood, and also blood which is reliable blood. If you don't have these 4 features of blooding, of blood donation, you may fall into any kind of disease beginning from HIV or to any kind of paralytic diseases that may stoke you up in the next few years to come. As the technology improves and advances, I think we are getting into more and more issues, and therefore we need to know more of what is happening around us than what we feel that we are secure as of now. Here I would like to mention that, of course, it gives a good prop-up. It's a good stepping stone to the companies, to the cyber individuals and intellectuals who are here. I just wanted to mention that a country which wants to become a superpower, a country which wants to catch the limelight in these days to come, does not spend any budget worth knowing on the protection of the systems, on the protection of the regimes, or the infrastructure which we have created against the possible and the potential threats that are enveloping everywhere, particularly when people have started having applications downloaded, RPG files, PDF files, sent every second and every minute of our life. We probably are too naive, or we are not too much woken up to deploy that force which is used in a war. In a war room, it is the captain and the brigadier, followed by the infantry, followed by the recruiters, and also having its own systems and its rules of business, what you call the SOPs, the standard operating procedures. They're all well laid out in an army regime. Let me mention that this world, the cyber world, in the sense, not in the positive sense, but in the sense of its danger, the potent thrusts, the thrust areas of the cyber war, which is likely to take place in the next few years, which has already started, is almost resembling this kind of an apparatus. It has got its executives, it has got its own recruiters, the malwares are also designed, the infective softwares are being introduced, and also the clients are quite established, and with the kind of the social media that is popping around, leveraging on the social media, whether it is the Facebook, or it is the Twitter, or it is the LinkedIn, FaceTime, WeChat, whatever you call, this has become a handy tool also to intrude, and therefore things have become more confusing and more complex. Dr. Gulshan Rai is here. No doubt they have come out with a policy which lays on secure, assure, and alert systems, which have to be three-pronged strategy in days to come. But it is not the government of India. It is each one of us which has to think in its own different manner, employ people who are programmers, deploy the infrastructure-related people, have our own ethical hackers, have our people who are able to do all kinds of job which is related to the vital infrastructure installations that have to be protected in the country, or in a corporation, or in a refinery, or in a fertilizer company, because they all constitute a part and parcel of the economy of the country, and they are as integral to us as the government is to us. It is not only the DRDO which is important to us, it is not the NTRO which is important to us, it is also the economic infrastructure, the nuclear infrastructure, the roads and building infrastructure, and the telecommunication infrastructure, which is as equally an important vital link for this economy's sustenance, and also the economy to have a leapfrog, which we intend to have. Taking that as one of the most important points in the coming days, I just wanted to ensure that now it's a time when all of you have to be deployed. A budget has to be earmarked. Minimum infrastructure has to be there. And simple rules of conduct, simple do's and don'ts have to be devised. When we walk on the road, there are simple rules of the road, traffic. When you go into a picture hall, there are certain SOPs to be performed. There are certain do's and don'ts to be done. But owning an infrastructure or getting the logistics of these cybers and not practicing any kind of do's and don'ts has probably exposed us to more vagaries and more of problems which we are not able to really capitulate. We are really very naive in doing it, and we are not doing it. Someone was mentioning simple things like using the mnemonics for the people who are at home, for the ladies at home, the women at home, the wives who are at home but not doing, but basically they're using as an application. The mnemonics helps us to have all kinds of our passwords which have got a variation in digits, titles, songs, easy to capitulate, easy to remember, and they can be changed from time to time. The other thing which we have been advising in this department and ministry which I am holding, particularly because of the complaints which are becoming because of the rapacious use of this MMS and the vandalism and the kind of the things which are used for outraging the modesty of women, is that we say that don't use the same password, use your passwords, change your passwords. The bank account's password should be separate, which normally all of us do. But I think it is very important that in the national system, this kind of an advertisement, this kind of a advocacy has to be now probably the hallmark of the regime. And no matter whosoever, wherever, and whenever he is posted or wherever he is working, all of us have to dive into this kind of a program, advocacy, to see that the basic rules, the basic tenements, the basic norms for dealing with any kind of such behavioralism have to be made a common phenomena and household application. Like, as I was mentioning, the using separate for the banks or the Facebook accounts, using HTTPS and also the two-way verification system which is there in Gmails, and also of not using the disenabling the GPS system wherever you are, it's not required, and also spending time to have curing the privacy features in the settings of our own applications, of our own domain names. We never spend time in doing it, and we leave it to others to do it. Most of the officers, barring a few, do use the passwords themselves. That is a fact. In a system where we are currently owning, it has not exposed us to any kind of risks. But I'm telling you, this is more private than the privacy of lives which you have at homes. So these kind of small things which I think are very integral to the entire system of cyber intrusion has to be a hallmark of our entire country at every forum, in every level, at every individual and in every home which is using, it has to be there. Whether it is a defense organization or whether it is a government organization, whether it is a commercial organization or whether it is an organization dealing with marketing and branding. It has to be told about the dangers. Friends, I would like to mention that an automobile industry, when it has come in different parts of the world, it has got its own other paraphernalic features. It has got a mechanic, it has got a warranty shop, it has got different parts, replacement people, suppliers, it has got a servicing area, It has got a accident breakdown areas. It has got some kind of a registrations to find out the lifetime of the vehicle, whether it is in full form or not. The entire paraphernalia of an automobile somehow has developed, evolved, or as you say, emerged quite logically and intuitively or quite historically with the automobile industry. Nothing is dissimilar when it comes to the cyber industry. In the cyber industry, it is as good as an automobile industry, where all kinds of features dealing with servicing, dealing with protection, dealing with the defense mechanisms, giving the rear guard, mirror on the right side, helps you to ward off accidents, a left side tire, which is flat tire, which will not be punctured, would enable you to at least travel 100 kilometers without any problems. These kinds of modifications and technological additions and afflorations has developed in the automobile industry for not only comfort levels being raised of the passengers in the car, but also of upgrading the security levels of a car when it is having a breakdown. Can you think of 20 years before when you have apply sudden brakes, the airbags never used to come out. I think thousands of people must have perished because the airbags were not systemized as a part of the infrastructure or of the automobile design of the cars. But now hardly anyone dies, because unless it is too crueling an accident, too devastating a phenomena, it saves the people from dying at least, if not injured. Same way, like an automobile industry which has spawned itself, opened its fangs, opened its, the entire regime has gone up, beginning from a villager. You find a village shop, you find a repair shop, even in a small village, to take care of the automobile. But you don't have this kind of a feature when it comes to the cyber intricacies. We don't need to have a repair shop for in cyber, but we need to take care of the security features of a cyber. So it's high time that we must come out with this kind of a do's and don'ts and an advocacy campaign. Coming to the, particularly the do's and don'ts are important, because now, as you know, the apps are available freely, and you never know which apps really makes what kind of a change for you and how can it be there. Particularly, friends, here I would mention here, like in an army, we have got different levels and hierarchy of positioning, of recruiting, of putting the people on the job, of doing the blistering attacks on the people, and also on conquering the enemy. In the same way, in our entire world, the statistics show that every minute, every second, we are having at least 17 people who are getting victimized, and per day it is 556 people. A recent report suggests that victims lose around 290 million pounds worldwide, and therefore this has triggered off the European Commission to set up the Cybercrime Center, EC3, at Hague, and also the Israeli PM, who is more vulnerable in terms of its enemy positions around him or the country. They are spending almost their sizable amount of money on this kind of applications, and in the entire global scale, we need to have more of expenditure, because last year, 2011, it was 60 billion pounds, and therefore we need to achieve in our own country this kind of securing the IT infrastructure, particularly of the vital and important strategic installations, by providing the intelligence and creating counter-response mechanisms, which would be particularly applicable to the threats to be posed, which is being posed to power plants, refineries, air, rail, road transport, logistics, state, private-owned industrial units, etc. The second step, which Dr. Gulshan Rai has already taken up, but I think it needs to be replicated, implemented in a big way, and that is the advocacy, creating an awareness. The awareness and the sensitization. It has to be a continuous process of communication to people of the state on how to prepare for countering the cyber threats in their day-to-day life, whether it's a school, college, adult, or a girl, child, or a senior citizen. And finally, preparing the state police force, because some of our officers who are here, they're quite aware of it, and we are also taking care of that. We are also, in my state, we are taking care of something called the CSK. It's not the Chennai Super Kings, but Cyber Suraksha Kabach. So when we said CSK to Dr. Gulshan Rai, he said, whether it's a Chennai Super King, we just come here. So I said, no, it's Cyber Suraksha Kabach, which we are trying to implement. So in that, we have laid emphasis on one thing, that there would be a group of people on the left side who would be technology providers, there would be programmers, there would be infrastructure people, there would be network security people, there would be ethical hackers, there would be people who would be dealing with the hardware installation and some software. And on the right side would be chosen people who would be from the police and also from the IB, who would be trained, given the details, tracking the IP addresses, finding the ABCD of each and every event, getting into the source code, getting into the details of each and every phenomena, and they would be trained substantially in a manner that they would be able to train the others who are basically not very educated in terms like all of you are, all of us are, but for this single-minded application, they will be able to explore and go into the roots of it and at least come into the details of it to find out, to check and to attack, because there are agencies which are now professionally attacking. You know, in the cyber world, there is an agency, there are agencies throughout, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in Eastern Europe, whether it is in Australia, whether it's in Europe, or whether it is in the Eastern Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, Nigeria. These are the countries which immediately surface in your mind. But the point is that these are the software people who start infecting. In what manner? They are of late, which we have seen in the context of Gujarat, we have found out that there are certain open portals which are doing advertisements. People can join. But those open portals are basically veiled portals for detecting you, for tracking you, and for finishing you off. Now, there has to be some kind of this malware or anti-spyware or some kinds of features which have to be thought of. People have to be educated about it, and therefore, it has to be prevented. Similarly, the support forums, the illicit software, there are certain portals which are transmitting the illicit these illicit software. They're propagating the support forums for helping you. And also, whenever there is a payment kind of a thing for selling and branding and marketing, the payment rates and etc., etc. So the entire espionage and tracking starts. And the whole game starts. Even in the search engine optimization attempts. This is another feature which is being also thought of, like in command to the army. The search engine optimization attempts and also the poisoned PDFs are also a new feature, which is also a threat to all of us. My dear friends, we are also one way or the other getting too much social oriented and joining the clubs, the social networks. And as I said, We never distinguish between a social network and a professional network. We all reveal all our personal data on the social networks, have 100% vulnerability and exposure risks. We don't do any risk analysis. And therefore, the target intervention of the opposite party becomes more successful, and the need assessment of that fellow also becomes also successful. He needs you. And what happens is that even if I do not know your official website, and I am, let's say, I am a friend of Mr. Rai, Gulshan Rai, and there is another friend of mine who is probably hired by some fellow to get into his networks. So he will be sending a mail which probably in this way it will be very good joke and other kind of a thing, or something of a smiley kind of a thing which I would like to transmit and forward it. And in the process, he would be able to get all the details of the person, because he is a part of the group now, of the social group, and these social group details are exposed, and there is an analysis being done. Mind you, there is an analysis being done of people who are needed, of which are the clubs in which he has got overlappings. There is a separate group which is trying to access which and how many sites this person is available, and who are his friend circles, whatever is his exposure details, and they probably do this entire work like research like we employ the PhD scholars. Researchers are put on the job, like the people we do in the DRDO. In the same way, these people they do. And there are attack agencies which do have these frontal attacks on important and vulnerable persons, and that becomes a great risk to us in the coming days. Knowing all this, as I have said, and I have compared this to the blood donation, because I took an example from the blood donation to find out that blood donation is not so simple and easy as you can think of. There is an hibernation time of a blood donor. Even if I call you that you are free to give blood today, but there is an antibody of a HIV virus which may develop within next 60 days to prop up. And until and unless a blood is stored in a blood camp or through a blood camp in a blood organization for more than 60 days, no blood should be given. But people don't know it. Because a person today, if you take my blood, I may be testing absolutely negative. But the contraction process of developing the antibodies may be, that is a hibernation period, may take 60 days to develop. The technology has developed to find out, and it will be called blooming of the antibodies, blooming system. And this blooming will take place in 60 days. And after 60 days, when this blood is tested, or it is gone to what we call the fractionalization of blood, where we derive things like plasma, the white blood corpuscles, the RBCs, the platelets, this kind of fractionalism is taking place in the blood now. No whole blood is given nowadays. To the cancer patients, it is plasma. To the hepatitis people, it is different. To the, what you call the chikungunya, it is platelets. This kind of new technology is not known to the villagers in India. They take blood, and after a few days they are detected with HIV, and that becomes a paralytic disease for them to survive and to live in the country, including social taboos. But what was his fault? He did not know. There was no knowledge. So what, friends, I think we must now emphasize this conference is that this hoisting and flagging of knowledge corridor in every area has to be a compulsory feature. And like we employ in every company HR consultants, we spend money on advertising and publicity. It is high time that we also must have some people who are professionals, who are reliable, who are in India, who are thoroughly elites in the sense of being quite accustomed to the ways of cyber manipulations. They are knowing the do's and don'ts of it. They have to be put as a part of the infrastructure. And all kinds of technological features have to be inbuilt of those companies which would be able to support these features, and then only we would be able to defend ourselves. Basically, India's system would be more defensive than attacking. We are not those ones in the Nigeria that we want to do attacks. We are not those kind. We are not those fellows who are situated in Canada or Australia, which is doing espionage politically, or as a part of the policy, or as a part of the corporate wars to finish the other corporation through this strategy of the cyber war. What in India we should have is a proper defensive situation in which we have to defend and completely foolproof our systems from any kind of infiltration, penetration, intrusion and attack